Also, we are being live streamed, and that is going out now. So just so you know, we won't have a closed session this time, but so while we're up though, all of your comments are being shared with the folks of Nebraska. So just a heads up on that.
All right. Can we have a motion for approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Let's see, that was Mark and Sarah. Okay, take one for the move and one for second. Okay, we need a vote then, please. Nick?
All right, thank you. So we have Sherry Hofshire.
Yes.
Brian Botsworth.
Yes.
Yeah. Zachary Cheek.
Yes.
Brenda Davis.
Yes.
Michelle Dudley. Okay. Crystal Dunning.
Yes.
Jana Goranson.
Yes.
Alex not here. Amy Haddad.
Yes.
Karen Harris.
Here.
Ellen Hornaday.
Yes.
And then Clark Roush.
Yes.
That's everyone.
Okay, moving to oral communications. Maggie, I know I saw you on there. Do you want to give whatever you have to say first, and then we'll do the ratification?
Yeah, Sam, can we start the PowerPoint now?
Hi, everyone. I'll wait till we get to our page.
And if you'll forward to, uh-oh.
Don't say "oh" like that.
Is it showing for you guys?
I
see
can wing
now.
it if you need me to, but
Yeah, I see it now, Sam. If you wouldn't mind forwarding to
That's a beautiful.
up right there. Thank you.
There we go.
That was a nice picture, wasn't it? I stole that off the internet.
So Mike, did you want me to go through my update, or is this when you wanted to talk about the ratification of the new board members? Because this is my update slide, or both.
Whatever report you wanted to give, this is there for you, and then we can ratify the board members right after this.
And okay, so I did supply the bio. Is that in the board packet, or?
They're in the board
Yeah, I'll
packet.
mention that when we get to the ratification.
Okay, great. So just in reference to the ratification, so everyone knows, the Cultural Endowment has approved 3 nominees for our board starting in 2024. And Sherry's going to go over that with you, the bios of the 3 folks, and that is what we're talking about in terms of ratification. We do have it in our bylaws that the Arts Council Board, as well as the Humanities Nebraska Board, ratify our new board nominees. So that is what we're referring to there. As far as other cultural endowment updates, we currently in our endowment funds, as you all hopefully know, we do have 2 funds. We have our private fund, and then we have the CPEF fund, which the Arts Council helps us manage through the Nebraska Investment Council. Currently, our private fund is at $16,333,000 roughly. And our CPEF fund managed by the state is at $11,900,000. Our private fund is well above corpus at this point, but our CPEF fund currently is a little over $1 million below, which is something that we're all a bit concerned about. We do still have $312,000 in our stability fund, which is a fund that we set up a few years ago when we had an abundance of earnings in the CPEF fund. So we did set aside some money at that point for a rainy day, which unfortunately has come because in 2022, we did have a really bad dip in the stock market. And so we haven't had any earnings in the CPEF fund to distribute for quite some time. So we did distribute half of our stability fund, which was at about $600,000 last year, to the Arts Council and Humanities Nebraska. And this year we have the other half left, and we are actually meeting with our financial committee tomorrow to decide a few things. One is whether to distribute that entire, what is left in our stability fund this year. And then also just to talk about what we can do to mitigate the dip in the CPEP, well, the non-existent CPEP earnings at the current time. Mike has been a great help in connecting us with the state investment council, and I've been speaking to them too. And so hopefully when we speak to my finance committee tomorrow for the endowment, we can come up with a few ideas on how to mitigate this issue. And then we will actually vote on distribution amounts from both our private fund and CPEP in our February 2023 meeting, board meeting. Just going to pause here. That was a lot of information in case anyone had any questions or thoughts.
I'll
Okay.
mention it's kind of a timing issue that we're meeting with the finance committee tomorrow to talk about these options, but we're meeting with you all today. Depending upon how that meeting goes and what options we decide to explore, some of which may involve working with the state, either with the legislature or with the investment council. And depending upon what direction we decide to go on, we may be coming back to you at some point to, if nothing else, let you know about where we're headed, or to check with you about how the council feels about it. So more information after tomorrow's meeting.
Any other questions about that? Just a few board updates. We did lose one of our founding cultural endowment board members, Bob Nevsky's, who some of you may know, on November 22nd. And we're very sad about that loss. And we are currently working with, we are getting a lot of donations in Bob's name, and we're working on creating a fund in Bob's name, much like what we did with Suzanne Wise's fund last year. So more on that as that develops. And then, like I said, Sherry will go into this in a little bit more detail, but Clay Smith, Brenda Christensen, and Tammy Hellman were approved to be new board members in 2024. One thing that I didn't put on here that I meant to, apologies, was just that we had agreed, our board has agreed to start a strategic planning session this coming year. And that is something that we've never done as a board before. So I think this will be a really exciting way for us to start. We just celebrated our 25th anniversary, and a great way for us to start the next 25 years is by getting together and creating that strategic planning. And we will be sharing that with you, of course, hopefully around this time next year when that is complete. As far as donor updates, we have one big donation that happened recently. We were granted $300,000 from the Holland Foundation to be distributed over the next 2 years. Some of you may know the Holland Foundation is currently sunsetting, and we may have one other opportunity to request a grant. They really narrowed the amount of people that they offered the opportunity to apply for grants this year, and we were lucky to be one of those organizations. So I was very pleased to see that we were able to get that grant, and hopefully we'll have one other opportunity. But that's the only major donor update for now. And unless anyone has any questions, that's it for me.
Congratulations on the grant.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's great.
Thanks.
Okay, regarding the ratification, as Maggie mentioned, the 3 new board members, and if the information about them is in that tab 1 on page 7, so it's only a few pages behind your agenda, and has their complete bios, and what they will be able, you can tell from that what they'll be able to bring to the board. And the cultural endowment is like our board, in that we, they try to get people from across the state from different regions and all. Their board approves makes the recommendation, and they approve these board members. Then both the Humanities Nebraska and the Nebraska Arts Council ratifies them. Don't ask me why. maybe Mike or Maggie can answer that, but that's what we're doing right here. They've already been approved by the Cultural Endowment Board. It's just up to us to ratify them. Maggie or Mike, do you want to say anything about that, or do you want to just let it ride?
I wasn't in the room when that happened. I honestly don't know why that is, but I think there's always been a real spirit of coordination
Right.
and mutual affirmation between our three organizations.
Right.
And I think it's just a respectful gesture to say it matters to us that you as a board ratify those folks that are going to be representing the endowment, which ultimately is supporting your organization.
I think Maggie put it very well.
Thank you. Yes. So we do need somebody to make the motion that we ratify these three people, and then we'll need a second.
I'll second. Oh, I expected somebody to beat me and say.
So moved.
Yeah, there you go. Second.
Who
I'm
moved?
used to the cacophony that is
Clark,
motions being made.
Clark moved. Zach seconded.
Okay, thank you. Nick, you want to take our vote?
Yep. Sherry,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Zach already did it. Brenda,
Yes.
Michelle, Crystal,
Yeah.
Jana,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
Ellen,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Sarah.
Yes.
Oh, and that's it.
Okay. Thank you, Maggie.
Everyone. Thank you.
All right, then Lance for Nebraskans for the Arts.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'll just have a real brief report here. And yeah, I had to put up a cheesy
cute.
little warm winter wishes here for you. But we can go to the next slide because that's probably the more important things. Just some updates. We are actually doing a strategic plan right now. We've been working on this throughout the fall, and last month we had a couple focus groups where we were able to have some of our members and some of our advocates participate in, and we got some great information from them. We have a working group right now, just kind of finalizing what that final plan will look like. We're working with Mission Matters as our facilitator, and it's been a really great process. So we hope to have something a final plan that we can have our board approve in January, which will just kind of give our focus moving. And I can't really say we've had a strategic plan, so I can't really say we're really starting with a new one. We're just kind of revamping and refocusing a little bit. Talking about focus, we're continuing to look and retain and expand our membership and kind of expanding our capacity as an advocacy network. So that's been kind of at least my goal here this fall. And we want you to save the date. We have an Arts Advocacy Day, which is scheduled for February 20th. It's a Tuesday. This will be back at the state capitol, and we'll be in the Warner Chamber for the morning. We're going to start the day with a legislative breakfast, coffee, pastries with senators, and then the people who are participating. We'll have some breakout sessions on best practices on how to be an advocate. We'll look at that economic prosperity report that came from the Americans for the Arts, but we're also going to have Troy with Lincoln Arts Council, who actually participated in that process, share a little bit about how they use that data in their advocacy and telling their story. We're also going to have the Omaha Performing Arts, since they do their own, share their process with us a little bit. We have some other breakout sessions. The Nebraska Arts Council is going to do some funding breakout sessions in the afternoon, and I hope we also can have some things just for arts educators as well. So we're really excited about this. It will be also an opportunity for advocates to meet with senators if it can work into their schedule as well. So we're really looking forward to that day. We'll have a registration available in January 8th. And we can go to the next slide. And the next slide, there's really, obviously, when we're not in session, there's not a lot going on. And I think I mentioned this the last time I reported to you. We're going to keep our eye on the art therapy certification. We'd like to continue to focus on that and hopefully get that across the finish line. But this year being a shorter session, our goal is just to kind of monitor all the bills if there's anything that might impact on the arts. At the national level, about a month ago, the House Appropriations bill, there was a Perry amendment, which would have, if it would have passed, the intent of that was to defund the NEA. It's not the first time we've seen this before, but I thought you might be interested in how our representatives voted on that. Bacon was no, Flood was no, Smith was yes. So, but that didn't pass. But again, we kind of keep an eye on what's going on there, and in my work with Americans for the Arts, they're doing a great job of letting us know when these things come up, and they come up sometimes very quickly. So that's our job, is to kind of keep an eye on that. So that's my report. If there's any questions from anyone.
And if I may, Lance, just piggyback off of what you've been talking about, because I was going to talk about it later on during my report. But for our purposes, for the Arts Advocacy Day, there are some important things that we hope to accomplish. And one is to get as many of our constituents there as possible, for a couple different reasons. One, so that we get them as informed as possible as to what's going on with us and with some of these important bills. But also we are looking to develop this as an opportunity for representatives from the creative districts to come together, so that they begin to learn some of these issues, but so that they also get to learn each other and become an advocacy block of their own, and so that they have an opportunity to meet the senators and to have discussions with them about what's going on in their creative districts and with the creative districts program in general. And so we will have more information about this as it develops. We're presently looking at a lunch for the creative districts, where Lance will talk about Nebraskans for the Arts and all the things that we've been talking about, as well as we'll have presentations of opportunities and programs that are available to the creative districts. But most importantly, again, have an opportunity for them to meet each other and to talk with each other. And then in our afternoon session, we will have what we're calling a funding expo, where we'll just have representatives from everybody from the NEA to Mid-America, to humanities, to tourism, to Department of Economic Development, to us, just talking about the funding that's available to our constituents and more pointedly to the creative districts. Again, we're really making a push to get them to attend either in person or virtually, so that we can begin that coalition of important people in our state. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that for the first time since COVID, the folks from the humanities and from Nebraskans for the Arts and from the Cultural Endowment are going to get together to have a little fun on February 9th. I think we're set on that date now. And it's just meant to be an opportunity for us to get to know each other a little bit better. We've got new people every place, and to talk about what we do and how we can help each other. So I think we're meeting at Fontenelle Forest, which should make it an interesting experience. So more collegiality. Thank you, Lance, though.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And Lance, I'm really personally excited that we're going back, because I've always thought that this format where we have breakfast in the morning, with senators and or their key staff person for the arts, and then we have the session where we can talk about bills and talk about how to advocate, and then we're right there by the senators. So as they can come out of session and you can talk to them directly. That's always been so effective. So I applaud that we're back in business again.
Yes, we're excited about that.
Yeah, thanks. Anybody have any other questions for Lance? Okay, let's move on out then. And now the approval of the minutes. Does anybody have any corrections or additions? Then could we have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Okay, Nick.
I missed that. Who seconded it? Karen. Okay, thank you, Karen. Yep. Sherry,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Zach,
Yes.
Brenda,
Yes.
Michelle, Crystal,
Yes.
Jana,
Yes.
Ellen,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
and Clark.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, financial report. Sarah, turning over to you.
Thank you, Sherry. The NAC Development Corporation and the NAC Finance Committee met December 5th, last Tuesday. And this is the point at which I will turn it over to Nick to give the financial report.
Yeah, will do. You can go to the next slide, Sam. So you all are very familiar with these reports, but this is the state allotment status report, and NAC's internal accounting must reconcile with this report. So the most important items for you all are the boxes, the red boxes. So our current expenditures for our program 326, which is administration fees, is 280,000. For program 327, our grant making area, it's just over 1.4 million. And then our program 329, which is mostly just administration fees right now as well, is just $9,000. And then if you go to the next slide, Sam. And so then this is our internal accounting, and you'll see that the red boxes between the two reports are equal. Is there anything else I should call out, Mike?
You might just remind people why we have encumbrances.
Yes. So you'll see that we have an encumbrance of $33,000 in program 326, and that's made up of just mostly open purchase orders, particularly from the State Arts Awards and a videography of that. And then in program 327, we have an encumbrance of $530,000, and that is outstanding creative district payments that will go out before the end of the year. Any questions about our financials? If not, then I think we're ready for a vote, Sherry.
Okay. Is there a motion to accept the financial report?
I so move.
Thank you, Jan.
Second.
Thank you, Sarah.
All right. So Sherry,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Zach,
Yes.
Brenda,
Yes.
Michelle, Crystal,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
Ellen,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
and Clark.
Yes.
The next item is that we as a board need to vote on the board of directors for the NAC Development Corps that we just talked about. And you'll see that on tab 2 in your materials, page 13. The proposed board of directors for the NAC Development Corps are Zach, Alec, who has agreed to continue even though he's not still on the regular board, Jana, Mark, Sarah, and Wally. Zach is the new person coming in to replace Alec, and the others have been on, and then Mike and I are just ex officio. So you need to vote on that proposed board of directors. Are there any questions before we?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Sherry, Sam, can you forward a few slides to the list of one more? One more? More? That's it. Thank you.
There we go. There they are. Okay. Do I have a motion to approve these people for the board of directors for the NAC DC?
So moved. Second.
All
Did
right.
okay, from now on, when you move, how about saying your name after it? Because Nick is having trouble.
I got Ellen was the first one, and then I gave it to Amy for the second one. I heard it was a tie, but Amy's hand I saw up. So,
Okay. All right, Nick, you want to take the vote?
yep. Sherry,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Zach,
I think I like this Zach guy. Yes.
yeah. Brenda,
Yes.
Michelle. All right. Crystal,
Yeah.
Jana,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
Mark.
I'm gonna abstain since I'm one of the members that's being proposed. That's okay with
Oh goodness, should I have done that? Oops. Can we change me to an abstention, Nick?
Okay.
It doesn't matter.
Well, Sarah, how do you want
Yes.
to? Okay. And then Clark.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, and then fortunately, it does not need a vote that I can appoint Sarah to be the president. So we, don't have to go through that whole roll call again. And thank you, Sarah, for agreeing to take over. Really appreciate the time that you're spending on this.
You bet.
Mike,
My pleasure.
Mike, did you start to say something?
Oh, I will just add here that I appreciate Sarah stepping in. I thank Zach for joining us. We had hoped to bring on one of the new council members, but I might as well make that report now. We have reached out to the governor's office and they have not made the reappointments or appointments at this point. That's why Ellen continues to serve. We thank her for that. And hopefully we'll get word soon as to what the future of the membership here on the council is. But I'll just toss in right now. Thank you, Mark, for helping out with the meeting on the 5th. It was nice of you to take that for us. That's it.
Okay. And Nick, I'll turn back over to you for the CPAC report.
Sam, you'll need to back up a couple of slides. What? Dump, forward. There you go. Thank you.
You're on mute.
Got
Nick.
it. Got it.
Okay.
Maggie alluded to a lot of this already, but so our CPEF funds, we have the Stability Fund, which helps us in these dark times when there are no drawdowns in earnings from the CPEF. So currently the fund is sitting at just over 311,000, which will then be distributed between NAC and Humanities Nebraska. The Cultural Endowment will be meeting to decide if they want to go with the policy on this. Their current policy says that they should give out the full amount, or if they would like to make edits to that policy to try to make it last a little bit longer into the future. And Mike, I don't know, do you want to go through all the options that we're looking at tomorrow?
Just a real briefly to let you know that we are looking at the fact that I asked Brian Schneider from DA Davidson. If you remember, I'd asked him last year to do a projection as to when he thought that we might start to see drawdowns based upon the current situation. And he had estimated that we might start to see them in July of 2024. And I asked him to do it again this year, and he is now estimating that it won't be until January of 2025. And so facing the possibility that we may not see any distributions for until that time, we're faced with the issue of, as was mentioned before, we have this 300,000 left in the stability fund. It's 50% of what was there last year when we were faced with this situation. And at that time, we decided to distribute 50% of it. And now we're again faced with the issue of, do we distribute all of the 300,000? Do we distribute 50% of it? Since we're not looking at any other distributions between now and January 2025. That is given the current status of our policy. And what we'll be discussing tomorrow and in the near future are other possibilities that range everywhere from changing the formula of our investment structure. Currently, it's 50% equities, 50% fixed income. We might be looking at talking with the state about looking at a more aggressive 70-30 split, or developing a combined policy with the cultural endowment folks that would give us closer to that. Looking at pursuing the issue of being able to draw down earnings, whether they are above the corpus or not. That has proven to be a less appealing option than we had originally hoped. Or looking at changing the current statute to say that we draw down a set percentage of the corpus every year. And that's the one that was proposed by Senator Stinner last year that we discussed briefly. So there are options that we're looking at, some of which would require us to go back in front of the legislature. Some of them we would again want to come back to you guys with. So we just want to talk about tomorrow what the possibilities are, given our situation, and what might be the most fruitful option to pursue, and then what steps would need to be taken to do it. The other option is to do nothing and weather the storm with what we have. And so a large part of that is just what is politically expedient for us as well. We've always had a position of not trying to draw too much attention to the Cultural Preservation Endowment Fund, because it is a set aside money from the legislature, and it's done very well for 20 some years. And so anything that we do, we would pursue cautiously, and with the advice of Senator Stinner, folks from the Investment Council, Brian Schneider, the folks from the Cultural Endowment Finance Committee are all brilliant people. And so I think we've got good minds thinking about the best routes to go forward. So more about that as we talk forward about it. The other thing that I'll just note is that on the good side is that we just finished processing the next transfer of $1 million that will take place at the end of this year. So kudos for Nick for doing his first transfer process. Went very smoothly. Nick has a very good relationship built up with Gary Bush in the budget office, and it's very helpful to have that. So that's it in a nutshell. That's what we're looking at, and I'd be glad to answer any questions. Maggie and or Amy, who sits on that finance committee, if I missed anything or if you have any other thoughts, I'd welcome you to.
I will say, sure, I will jump in and say there was one other option, which is interesting, that Brian from DA Davidson suggested, which is that every time we get that $1 million match, like we're currently getting right now, it raises the corpus, which makes it a little bit harder for our earnings to get above corpus. And so one other option would be, and again, this would require a change to our statute, but we could request to the state that those funds be deposited in the account, but not be counted toward the corpus for around 3 years, so that the corpus that is earning is remaining the same. And so then the earnings have a better chance of getting up over that line, so that we can start pulling them down and dispersing them. So that is I just wanted to mention that was one other option that was thrown out there on the table that we'll be discussing tomorrow as well.
Yeah, that one I'll need to hear more about. I'm not familiar with it sounds interesting, but we'll see what Joe and Brian say about it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else?
Thank you, Maggie.
Under financial report at all? Everything covered?
I think so.
Thank you all very much then. Let's go on to grant reports.
Oh, I'm sorry.
See
Is
what
Sherry?
that money is doing. What?
Nope, never mind. Forget I
Okay.
said anything.
I think, Mike, are you starting in?
Well, I will just,
grants?
in so much as that what we'll do is we have the grant panels and we'll ask for a report from the council members who sat on the panel as to how it went and if they have any anything that was of note. And we'll start with arts in schools communities, but that one was a staff. So Josh, did you want to say anything about that one?
Yeah, it was just a little grant for Millard Public Schools to do a semester-long art experience with one of our teaching artists, teaching roster artists. So it was a first-time grant from them and the first time they went through that that process. So happy to see new applicants in that category.
And then Sherry, I'll just mention as we go along with these, we've put into the PowerPoint the final award spreadsheet for each of these panels, and then I'll let the folks know where they can find the details, the bios of the panels, and the minutes for each in their packets. So Sam, if you wouldn't mind forwarding to the next slide. Yeah, this is the one that Josh was just mentioning. So unless anybody has any questions about it, we can go on to the Arts Learning Project Grant Panel, which is the information for it is on page 7 of your packet. This is the spreadsheet of the folks who were awarded. And Jana, you served as chair on this. Would you like to talk about the panel process?
Sure. The process went very well with very educated and thought-provoking comments. I'm always amazed at the different avenues that people come from and the insight that they have. We looked over 8 different applicants, and our job on this panel is not to decide any financial award, but just to look at the applications and which ones we would approve for funding and which ones we would not approve for funding. And all 8 of the applicants were approved for funding. And then it's kind of a formula as far as what they receive. So you can see that the total amount was $55,865 was the request. And then the actual award was $43,016. So I think you can all read in your packet the different organizations that applied and their scores.
Thank you, Jana. And before we go on, just as a note, in terms of the formula, what we do is we look at the amount of money that we have available for the set deadline grant panel categories, and we distribute it across them based upon the amount of requests in each category. And we determine approximately how much we can allot for each. And this year, that amount was 77% of the requested amount. And so you see in this case, there was a fractional difference. But in this case, the percent of request for the group was 76 point some percent. So that's how that is determined. Then after that, it's based upon the ranking of their score as to how much of that they get. And so if you have any questions about that as we go through, we certainly can answer them. Clark or Zach, you also served on that panel. Do you have anything that you wanted to add?
No, not really.
I thought it was encouraging. I want to protect everybody's identity, but I've done enough of these now that apparently the comments that we have been making is there are some people that applied for grants here that scored higher than they have in the past. And I think that just is a testament, not certainly to our wisdom, but to their ability to take our comments, and that there's some people that really do take those couple hours seriously. And I just feel like there's some new grants that were wonderful, but there's some other grants that were just better than grants from the same place in other years.
Nice.
I have a question. and I can dig through the packet, I suppose, a little more carefully, but the West Side Community Schools grant, why is that one in this arts learning project as opposed to the artists in school? I suppose that's only because they didn't hire an outside artist. I'm just curious because it's a $15,000 request.
Some sort of project they partnered with Millard Public Schools on, where they were bringing in, if I remember correctly, it had to do with special needs students receiving some sort of specialized program where they were receiving arts education in addition to their school curriculum. I could be slightly misguided on that, but that's essentially what it was. It was some sort of special program.
I think that's right. And I think they were mainly doing it in-house.
Mm-hmm.
And then traveling around to various facilities within the districts.
I see.
But because it involved multiple schools, they were allowed to ask for the 15,000.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, then, Sam, if you wouldn't mind going on to the next one, Arts Project Panel Grant #1. And Crystal was good enough to head up both of these panels for us. So, Crystal, did you want to talk about arts, the first one?
Yeah, so similar to the process outlined for the previous group of grants, the decision wasn't about the particular amount of funding, but we had some great applications in both rounds. And in this first round, we had 15. And the decision was to that all of them warranted and were meritorious enough to warrant funding. So all 15 of those received funding there. And I believe there was an additional council member on that panel with me.
Amy also served
Amy.
on that.
Amy.
Yes. So thank you, Amy.
I don't really have anything else to add.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
All right. Thank you both. Any questions about that one? If not, Sam, take us to panel #2. And Crystal, you're up again.
All right. So again, similar process. In this particular instance, there were 2 applications that we just had too many questions about, or the application itself did not do the project justice, in the sense that we, the panel rather, felt that the grants or the applications didn't warrant funding. So the decision was made to fund the Nebraska Community Playhouse and everything above, and then the 2 you see below, the Falls City Main Street, and then the Phelps County Community Foundation did not receive funding, or will not receive funding.
And just as it's just a reminder that the folks who did not receive funding, they're informed of that, and if it works out for them, they're encouraged to put in a mini grant or find some other way of helping to fund the projects that they have. But we also certainly work with them as much as possible to improve their grants for the next time. And as Clark pointed out, oftentimes those folks who do get that technical assistance do much better the next time, and we like to see that from our applicants. Okay, any questions about that one? All right, thank you, Crystal. And Sam, the next one. And this one is our annual series and events grants. And if you remember, these are the grants that were project grants, and they do basically the same programming every time. And so we put them in this special invitation category. We review their programming for the current year. We look at any changes to the organization or to the project. But if everything looks good and they are all set to go forward, they get approved by the folks on the panel. Brian, you served on this panel. Is there anything that you'd like to say about the approval process?
Yeah, this was the first time that I've done a panel, so it was really a learning experience. And as far as each of these events go, they all seemed worthwhile. And so it wasn't hard to say yes. It was really interesting to see individual answers and questions. And like we've talked about, people improving. I definitely found room for improvement that I suggested on some things. And one thing that I found was I'll call it hoops that we have to jump through to get funding from Nebraska Arts Council. I found why a lot of the hoops that people have to jump through are worthwhile. It really forces people to think about their project and how they're going to meet the criteria that require for them to get a grant from our organization. And it's really helpful to make a stronger project. So that was kind of a nice thing to see. I've written grants before, proposals to get money from the Arts Council. This is the first time I've seen other people's proposals. And it was really interesting to see how our criteria creates better projects in the end. So that was pretty cool.
Thank you, Brian. It's great to have that perspective. I did want to mention, as you see on the chart here, that as Brian mentioned, some of the organizations' applications weren't as strong as others, and the Stir Museum Foundation had some real gaps in their application. And to the point where the panel felt it was important that the grant be made provisional, that they clean up some of those deficiencies. In contacting the Stir Museum, we had extensive conversations with them, and the upshot of it was that they felt that the program was changed enough that they didn't feel comfortable making the necessary improvements to this grant because it was going to be changing. This was entirely their choice. We suggested to them just making the provisional changes, and then they could choose to do the project grant next year. They felt it was not right of them to accept this fund, so they withdrew their application. Stephanie, if I've misstated that in any way, let me know. But again, this was quite a conversation that we had with them, with Chris, the head of the organization, as well as their granting people. The upshot of that is that this 3619 that was awarded to them, which the board had originally approved for this category, now we would like to put back into the general grant pool so that we can use it for floating deadline grants and such. So I would like, if you guys are amenable to it, to have a motion to return the unused funds back to the general grant pool. So if anybody has any questions, yes, Amy.
I move.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Second, Clark.
Perfect. Thank you. So we'll go through the list. Sherry?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Zach?
Yes.
Brenda?
Yes.
Michelle? Crystal?
Yes.
Jana?
Yes.
Karen? Karen? You're on mute if you're talking.
Do a thumbs up.
Thumbs up. Okay, there we go. Ellen?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
All right, that's everyone. Thank you.
Well, I would say a big thank you to all of you, Jana, Clark, Zach, Crystal, Amy, and Brian. I know how much time it takes to read through these and all, but from your comments, I could tell that you found out what all the rest of us find out when we do it, and that's that you'll learn a lot about the state, what other people are doing, and you see how they're taking these comments to their advantage to try to make things better, and that's really important. So thank you for that time. Okay, let's move on. Mike, you've got the NAC DC special grants.
Well, and before we move on, Sherry, Sam, if you wouldn't mind changing the next slide, your comments were a wonderful intro to. We wanted to try to provide the dates for the next panels a little bit earlier than we usually do, so that you guys can start to look at your schedules and see which panels you might like to serve on come spring. So these are the dates that we've set up for the panels for the spring. And as you see there, we already have one chair. So Sherry always serves as the chair for the basic support grants, but the other four, the other three at least, we have the tentative dates for there. And then if there is need for a third arts project grant, as there was last year, the date for it. We will follow this up with an email tomorrow with these dates, but just so that you are aware of it and looking for it and start to look at your calendars as to which panels you might like to serve on this spring. Okay. Thank you. Now, Sam, if you wouldn't mind going forward. Sherry mentioned one more. Okay.
No, back. Well,
no, this is it. This is good.
Okay.
Thank you. As mentioned at the last meeting, as you remember, we always take any surplus funds that we have for the year and we put them in 326 because we can always transfer money from 326 to 327, but not from 327 to 326. And as the need for additional funds for grants arise, we then transfer the money so that we can grant it out as need be. We are in need of that. We have school bus grants that have been overflowing, which is a great thing. We also have some other funding needs for floating deadline grants. And so we have transferred $50,000 from program 326 to program 327. And we would now like for you all to help us by approving a grant that Sarah has been nice enough to put together the letter for that would grant $30,000 for school bus grants to NAC DC. And again, the $20,000 that would remain would be used for floating deadline grants, which I will mention in just a moment, the great influx of grants that we've been getting from that. So that's the purpose of this grant, and we may end up doing this again because we've had a great deal of grants so far this year, but for now, this will get us a little farther down the road. So if anybody has any questions about it, I'll be glad to answer them.
Mike, this is something that I abstain for, right?
Yes, folks on the NAC Development Corporation would abstain from this. Thank you.
All right, vote. Nick, you want to take the vote?
Do we need someone to make the motion first?
Oh,
yeah, and
sorry
so,
about that.
And as a reminder for Nick and for the rest of the board members, the folks who would be abstaining and not making motions would be Sherry, Zach, Jana,
Mark,
and Sarah. Okay. Thank you.
I'll make the motion. I'll second it.
Michelle and Karen.
All right. Thank you. So we'll start with Brian then.
Yes.
And Brenda?
Yes.
Michelle? Crystal?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
And Clark?
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
great. Now we're done with motions until we adjourn.
Yeah.
Let's move on to reports. I have a quick NAC report. As Mike mentioned, we haven't heard anything yet from the governor on appointments and reappointments, and it isn't for lack of trying. Mike contacts the gal regularly. I've sent her an email and I've had no response. So again, thank you, Ellen, for filling in here. I also want to thank all the board members who attended the State Arts Awards. It was a really, really nice evening celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Arts Council, and it was good to see that when I introduced our board, that there were some people there to take advantage of being introduced, and that our board members made the rounds talking to different people. So I think it is really appreciated for those who were able to come. We did get the governor did attend. He attended, and the first lady as well. He decided not to hand out any of the awards. And then he stayed at the end and talked to a few of the congratulated a few of the winners. He also then sent me a handwritten note. Mike, do we have a slide on that?
Yeah, Sam, if you wouldn't mind forwarding. One more right there. It's down in the left-hand corner there.
Yeah, and it basically said, thank you. There's a copy of it in your packet as well. It's about 2 pages from the end of your board packet, and it basically said, glad to have been there. So I thought this was the first time we've had a governor for quite a while, so it was nice that he did attend. I would just also say that since September, tried to represent you well in places. I attended a couple of the online Zoom info sessions from the National Assembly of State Arts Agency. And then Mike and I were in Tulsa for the Mid-America Arts Alliance Conference. We also went to the Cultural Endowments Government Relations Committee meeting with lobbyists, with the Cultural Endowments lobbyist Walt Radcliffe. We attended the Standing Bear Courage Awards and the Humanities Nebraska Governor's Lectures. So trying to represent you. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Mike, for your report.
All right. Yeah, I just while we have this slide up, reiterate everything that Sherry said. It was a wonderful evening, and I'll just for those who weren't there, that we did have a number of previous council members, previous senators, previous board members, and Suzanne Wise was there, and we brought her up on stage and recognized her and her part in our 50th anniversary. So it was a very nice evening. If anybody else who attended has anything that they'd like to add about it.
I just thought of something else, Mike. The photo down at the bottom, that's Todd Stein from Mid-America Arts Alliance, who drove up from Kansas City so he could present that Marian Anderson Award of $10,000 to Brigitte McQueen, who was selected by the Nebraska caucus to receive it. And she was obviously thrilled, and the money is hers to do whatever she wants with. It's not hers to spend and put back into the organization. It's an arts person award. So it's both a big thank you to Marian Anderson for leaving the money for somebody to have, but also to Todd for coming up, and congratulations to Brigitte.
Thank you. And I got clarification from Todd. That will be an annual event now. So we'll be looking to recognize somebody again next year. So that was really great that he came up. And Brigitte, as many of you probably know, is moving on from the union. And she has agreed to serve on the board of the Mid-America. And so she will be a mover and a shaker in the arts around here for a while yet. We'll just have to wait and see where she lands in terms of her career. Okay, did anybody else have anything that they wanted to add about the 50th anniversary? If you did not get a chance to, and I believe these are available on our website, the videos that were created both for the Creative District program and for the 50th anniversary, where we had a number of folks give testimonials and thank yous about the 50 years. including the chair of the NEA. I have those, and they're 6 minutes in length each, so I won't show them to you now. But if time permits, at the end of this, if anybody would like to, otherwise we'll send around the link so that you guys can all take a look at those as well. I think they all turned out pretty well and represent us well. Those are your winners in the middle. Other than that, unless anybody has any questions or comments, we will move on. Sam, could you back up 2 slides, please? We have a new staff member who has been with us before, but not in the role of staff. And we brought on Taliza. She had been serving with our folk and traditional arts program before that, and we were lucky enough to have her apply for the job, the new job with the cultural and the creative districts program when it was made available. And I can't imagine a better candidate for the position, and she's served us oh so well since she joined us. But Taliza, if you're there, can you jump on and tell people about yourself using these visuals that you've given us?
Such visuals. Hello, everybody. Yeah, I'm Talisa Rodriguez. I was at the Museum of Nebraska Art as curator for 15 years, over 15 years. And before that, I served as the director of the Hayden Gallery, if anybody remembers that, in Lincoln. It was a nonprofit art gallery as a project of the Nebraska Art Association that served mid to late career artists. So that's really where I started my career. This is me and my little life, I like to call it. My son, Mateo, he's 14. And then we have 2 dogs, and I call it our Hobbit house because it's a tiny little house in the town of Shelton that's about 1,000 people. And I put another slide in here. I just followed, I asked Mike, should I do 2 minutes or 15 minutes? So he said 15, and I said 2. So I'm going with the 2 minutes. And then this was us. We spent about 3 months in Mexico in 2022. I was a recipient, or I'm a part of the Sherwood Foundation's Catalyst program that they have, Catalyst cohort. And so it funded us to be able to go stay in Mexico, and we were in Oaxaca, and then we're in Mexico City, and then down in the Yucatan for that time period. And then my parents, of course, they live like 4 blocks from us. And so we see them all the time, and we just like to get out, look at art, of course, and we're pretty active. And so that's it, really. If anybody has questions, I'd love to answer them. But I just want to say, so far, I have really enjoyed this position and the opportunity. And I said it when I met you all at the last board meeting, but your staff that you have, and Mike, you should be very proud, and Mike as well, is just sensational. And I couldn't ask for a better chance or opportunity to work with them alone makes it worth it. So yeah, thank you. And thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Talisa.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, so an awful lot going on, and I will go through it as quickly as I possibly can, but there's some exciting things happening that I wanted you to know about, and some things on the horizon as well. Sherry mentioned that she and I went down to Tulsa. We had a very good meeting with the folks at Mid-America. There are an awful lot of things that the Mid-America folks do, granting opportunities, professional development, other programs that we're learning more about. There's an awful lot of them. And what we're looking at is just how they can benefit our staff, our communities, our creative districts. And we're beginning to develop a closer relationship with them. And that will all begin at that Arts Administration or Arts Advocacy Day, as I mentioned. So I think that they have an awful lot to offer the folks in Nebraska. And since some of our grant dollars go to them, it'll be good to have a better relationship that provides more back to the state. Then also, I wanted to quickly mention that we've had the report about the Nebraskans for the Arts. I will just add to that we are, as well as what the Nebraskans for the Arts are looking for in terms of legislation and things like that, we are just always looking to build greater knowledge and awareness of what we do as an agency within the legislature, so that next year, when we go to them with our needs in terms of our agency, and more specifically, greater funding for the Creative Districts program, that they are as informed and aware of what we're doing. And so that's a great part of what we are working towards with the Nebraskans for the Arts. And Lance has done a wonderful job so far of getting the board invigorated and developing plans for the Arts Advocacy Day. So more to come.
Mike, can I insert something? I was just thinking of something from the governmental meeting that we had, in that one of the things that came out of that is that we should all be looking at talking to some of the people that we know who are going to be running for state senator, because there are a number of people who are through with their term at the end of this session. And so getting into the ear of some of the potential people who might be elected and letting them know about the arts in advance would be a good thing. So we're all out in different areas, so keep that in mind. If you have the opportunity to meet someone, let them know you're involved with the arts, and then that you can always have follow-up. Okay.
Great, thank you. Nick and I just got back from a meeting with the National Assembly of State Arts Agencies in Santa Fe last week, and it was a full week-long session by the time, because I was a new ED, I had to go in a day early for their boot camp, as they call it. Then there were 2 days of sessions with the other executive directors and deputy directors from across the country. And then I stayed an extra day to meet with the other EDs from the Mid-America Arts Alliance area, because they are also working through a strategic planning process. And so we had a more focused session on Thursday. An awful lot of information, and I always come away from these sessions with a great deal of inspiration from what other agencies are doing, but at the same time, a great reaffirmation of the work that our staff does. Talisa is right. I think I would hold our staff up against anybody in the country in terms of not only what they get done, but what they aim to get done. Our staff walks into the office every day looking to see what they can do better or do more of for the people of Nebraska. And that's always a sense of pride when I talk with the people from across the state. Marry that, though, with what was one of the prevailing concerns across the country, and that was that there is a great need to do an awful lot these days in terms of educating constituents and legislators, that there is a political unease across the country. Many states are in a real bind in terms of how they can push the arts forward or education forward in their states, in their legislations. And that is causing a great deal of staff stress. There's a great deal of turnover across the country. And so one of the things that, as we've been going through our strategic plan, that we continue to work on is, what are all the great things that we can do, and how do we do them and sustain them with the staff that we have in a way that will keep us all sane and working forward. And so that was good to see that is something that people are going through across the country. And there were lots of people who had ideas and feedback on that. The other great topic of interest across the country, and this comes down from the NEA, is a desire to build more cross-sector initiatives, working with other agencies within the state, within the federal government, and locally. We have a number of those going already. We work with humanities, we work with the Department of Economic Development, we work with the Department of Education, and we have an awful lot of those relationships that we are currently building with tourism, with Veterans Affairs, with the Commission on Indian Affairs, and some more of that as we go forward. But there is a great deal of conversation about that at the national level, and there was a great deal of help from other agencies, other state agencies, as to how they get that accomplished. So all in all, it was a very good week. Much more to come as we go forward from that. I very quickly wanted to mention that the board dates for the next year are in your packet. So we will be sending out here towards the end of the year the links for all of those so that you have those on your calendars. And if anybody has any problems with any of those, let me know. But they are there for you. And then finally, a note of information for you that, as you may or may not have seen, the government or the governor has issued an executive order. And the executive order says that everybody who is a state employee needs to return to the office Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. And if you remember, our staff has been working a hybrid schedule since we came out of COVID. We are in the office, specifically, each of us is in the office 3 days a week. Tuesdays and Thursdays, we're all there. Each staff member chooses a third day in which they are in the office. And then the other 2, they work from home. This flexibility has been very good for us. It allows us to do some of the field work that we do. So we are waiting to see how this turns out. The union is working feverishly to convince the governor that it was not a good idea to go this route. There are agencies out there who are experiencing a great deal of folks who do not want to return and are resigning or retiring. So more to come on this. Just want you to know that we are looking at our options and that I am working to develop our argument for why we would want to maintain our hybrid scheduling. It works well for us. It has worked well. It will work well. Much better than having to be in the office 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. So I would be glad to answer any questions about any or all of that, but that's what we're about now. If not, thank you.
Did you want to say anything about the strategic plan? It's on the agenda.
Yes. Thank you. Everybody's mentioned strategic plans. I wanted to talk about ours. Thank you, Sherry. I wanted to very quickly let you know where we are in the process. And in your packet is a draft of what we have developed thus far. So very quickly, just to remind you where we are, every 3 years, we develop a strategic plan. And our process began as soon as I came on board. We met as a staff to talk about what we thought was a good process for us to carry forward as a strategic plan and what those steps would be. We spent the summer talking with the council, with constituents, we did a constituent survey. We met with listening forums across the state. We did one-on-ones with arts leaders from a number of different organizations and agencies. And then at the end of the summer, we had a retreat where we put all those ideas together in terms of, and then discussed where we wanted to go forward. We formed a committee within the staff that then put the draft of this together, and Stephanie Plummer headed that up, and I appreciate very much the work that she did to put all of those ideas and thoughts and the things that we found and what we wanted to do going forward into this draft that you have. And I wasn't going to, as part of this PowerPoint, go through them all, but I just really wanted to give you an idea as to where we are and what we're looking at, and then to let you know that the next step in this is that we've presenting you the draft now, and we will also be putting the draft out for some public input now that we've written it. And then at the end of the year, we would like to have any thoughts, comments, concerns from you guys, and we'll be marrying those with what we receive from the community. And we'll look at those and we'll meet as a staff and we'll make adjustments and we'll put together a final draft that we will then bring back to you at the March 7th committee council meeting for your final approval. Okay. I want to say about the process that, as we say in our strategic plan, we operate from a standpoint of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That we have a rather evergreen strategic plan, that our basic mission and vision don't change from year to year. What does change is our emphasis, our agency priorities, and they tend to reflect changes in the arts landscape, changes in funding structures, those sorts of things that do change as we go along. And that's what you'll see reflected in our strategic plan this year, that with the some of the changes in what's going on in the arts, what's going on in society, what's going on in the political structure, what's going on with our staff and our programming, that we have made some adaptations to our priorities. But we still, in terms of modeling leadership and collaboration, we still look to be the leaders in the state in terms of what's going on in the arts community, and fostering discussions about the important movements in the state in terms of facilitating the efforts in DEI and access, the changing funding structures, opportunities in the creative districts programming, and those sorts of things, to be a connecting point for the arts organizations across the state. And that continues to be an important part of what we do. In terms of elevating artistry and creativity, we continue to put a strong emphasis on supporting the work of the artists across the state and what they do. And more and more that involves the artists of the communities and the artists within the folk and traditional arts area and the work that they do. Raising all of those artists up, and also providing more technical assistance for them so that they can manage and promote themselves the best way that they can. In terms of expanding education and understanding, education is one of those areas that we find in the state that is undergoing a great deal of political stress right now. And so we see our role in terms of arts education to being providing education about that from the beginning of life to the elderly, and providing opportunities for them, lifelong learning in the arts. And so everything we do works within the schools, works within the communities, works within senior centers to provide arts education opportunities for everybody in the state throughout their lives. And we will continue to do that with the programming that we do. Ensuring access and inclusion is been a more and more important part of what we do, not necessarily as an initiative, but incorporated in everything that we do. How we operate as a staff, working with constituents, working with our granting programs to provide as equitable and as diverse programming and granting opportunities as possible. And that will be a more and more important part of what we do. We see a great deal of development in advancing communities and culture. Obviously, because of our programming with creative districts, this has become a more focused area of what we do. And so we felt it real important that we had a priority that just looked at how we promote the communities throughout the state of Nebraska, help them grow through their arts and through their needs as communities. Also, the cultural communities that we have throughout the state, and how we can hold them up through our folk and traditional arts and our heritage arts programming. This is, again, will be a more and more important part of what we do. And then finally, obviously, a large part of what we do is helping to enhance capacity and sustainability for arts organizations, for artists, for our creative districts, just providing them the funding, the technical assistance, the professional development that make our current artists, and as importantly, our next generation of artists, of administrators, of patrons, of everybody who is a stakeholder in the arts, developing those programs and initiatives that will help carry us that next generation forward. That in a nutshell is where we are headed. Stephanie, did I miss anything of importance?
The only thing I was going to say is that Anne actually headed up the committee. I just did a lot of writing for the
Yeah, but I see your
section.
face, so that's why I said your name.
And Josh also was a part of that committee and contributed a great deal to it. So
thank you very much. And the whole staff had a great deal of working on this, but you know, the hard part is putting pen to paper and putting this draft together. And so I call you guys out for your extra work in putting this together. So now we have a straw man. And again, I encourage you all to take a look at it to see what, if any, questions or concerns or thoughts or suggestions you might have. And we will reach out again to you between now and the end of the year to see if you have any input or thoughts about it. We do take seriously your input in this, and I know that in strategic plans in the past, we have made large changes based upon what you guys bring to it. So I do encourage that input from you, and we will reach out again to make sure that you are kept in the process. And then, like I said, we'll put all of those ideas together after the beginning of the year and develop a final draft that we'll bring back to you at the March meeting. Okay.
Okay. Any questions for anybody at this point? All right, then moving along, let's go on to program reports, folk and traditional arts. Stephanie?
yeah, and there we go. Thank you, Sam. So I wanted to spend just a little bit of time looking back in a sense. So Ellen Struve, who is basically our outreach associate for folk and traditional arts, is due to finalize and send in her report from this last year this week, the 15th. But so far this year, she's contacted 84 new artists. So I don't have quite a pin on the total, but that's well over 150 artists at this point that we've reached out to or made contact with in some way. She spent a great deal of time visiting festivals and fairs over the summer. And so consequently, based on a conversation with her, the majority of those artists are Indigenous, Native American artists. And so one thing we're looking toward as we develop our goals for the coming year is what kind of support and outreach we can do to the different tribal nations in the state, and what kind of support or links we can help provide for the artists in those communities. I also wanted to mention that Josh and I did an outreach presentation at the International Quilt Museum, and let them know about the Folk and Traditional Arts program and how happy we would be to hear from them about either their work as quilting artists or hearing from them about other artists that they know of. So we're continuing to do that outreach. I also wanted to point out too that we just closed the Folk and Traditional Arts exhibition in the Fred Simon Gallery. This was the first ever of its kind that we've held. And so the plan going forward is that we would try to do one of these every 2 years. I wanted to point out, though, that this particular one had some nice little bits of news coverage. So Talisa, who was the curator of the exhibition, and I were on the Visual Arts Roundup for Friday Live's website. So if you happen to frequent their website, you can listen to Talisa and I get a little giddy over the artwork that was in the show and how much we enjoyed learning about these artists and working with them. There's also a photo of the exhibition opening there, and that is artist Valerie Kills Crow Copeland, who loaned us her daughter's regalia. And then on the right, Crete produced a really lovely article about two of the artists who live in that community who participated in the exhibition. And after the meeting, I'll send a PDF of the article around so you can read it. It's a really, I think, tender discussion of the artist. Very, very lovely. I also wanted to mention a few things that we're looking towards researching and developing in the future. So we've been trying to lay some groundwork to have an apprenticeship program, which for many states is a vital component of their folk and traditional arts program. And then also looking at like a quilter recognition program of some kind. So that is in early days where we're just discussing it and reaching out to potential partners and advisors on that. I also wanted to mention too, and I don't have the dates here, which is an omission on my part, but there's a few little fun events. So the Fezziwig Ball is coming up, and that is at Lauriston Gardens, and that is English folk dancing. So if you're into that, I would check that out. And then Prairie Arts Center has a textile show, and that's over in North Platte. And then in Prague, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Prague, thank you. That's what I thought initially, but they have a polka night coming up. So this is kind of in the next few months here. It gets a little quiet around this time as people spend more time with their families, but if you poke around, there's still some folk and traditional arts happening. So that is all I have for you.
I hate to interrupt you, but speaking as a former Saunders County resident, it's pronounced Prague. I know
Prague, thank you.
They call it Prague up there.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Prague.
Well, I think that could be a night out for our board here. We could all go to polka.
I'm not polka since I was 11. It's a lot of
fun. Stephanie, excuse me, but what did you say the Fezziwig Ball is?
It is English folk dancing. So it's an organization called Old Dominion Dance Group. And so they have, this is the last year actually, according to what they've put out there, but they have lessons and meetups, and it's all just about English folk dancing. So.
Oh, thank you.
Well,
yeah,
I've
you're
never
welcome.
heard of the Fezziwig, but okay.
They encourage some costumes.
I'll try to look it up tomorrow.
Yeah. It looks fun.
I will just mention, Stephanie, that I mentioned to Stephanie, I'll mention to the rest of you, that when I was in Santa Fe, I was bragging a bit about this and about our exhibition, and there was a great deal of interest in it. And the fact that, you know, this is a field, folk and traditional arts or heritage arts, or a great deal of conversation these days as to what it is, how do we nurture it, and it was some of the more fascinating conversations that I had. But the fact that we had done an exhibition of the many different types of art that we did drew a great deal of interest. And of course, the first question they asked is, when are you going to do the next one? And I explained that we have a schedule in our gallery, that it would be a couple years before we could put one in there, but that there's always the possibility of working with other partners or collaborators on possibly doing something someplace else through one of them. So,
and if I could just make one note, it was really Talisa put in so much work, so much time locating these artists and communicating with them. And Megan was amazing. She oversees the gallery space. So the three of us working kind of as a team, it was really wonderful. And then it was really, the excitement was palpable around the office. So everybody sort of pitched in to get the opening going. It's very different from what we normally do, but I think it just was really exciting, joyful in a way too.
Great, thank you. The creative districts, Rachel, are they still taking off?
They haven't slowed down at all.
So you'll see on your screen here, these are all of our certified districts in the state. We are up to 23 as of today. We have a few more that have their final pieces out for review. So we will see more by the end of the year. What's really exciting is to see the districts that go all the way across the state. So we start down in the southeast corner with Falls City, out to Scottsbluff, and up to Hardington is one of our newest creative districts. And we have districts that are small communities. Brownville is 150 people, to Benson, which is in Omaha. So it's really exciting to see the program take off and be able to fit different sizes of communities, which is great. Sam, would you go to the next page or next slide? This is all of the communities that are involved in the process. I know this is a little overwhelming, which is why we pulled out just the certified ones. This can be a bit much. But here you can see all of the organizations or all of the communities that are involved in the process, meaning that they've at least submitted a letter of interest. So they might be working on their workbook, they might be working on their strategic plan. Tomorrow I'm going out to Wakefield to do their site visit. So I'm getting to meet with them one-on-one and see their community in person. Next slide, Sam. One of the things, one of the reasons we're seeing so much activity in the program is that Department of Economic Development, DED, has a grant program called the Civic and Community Center Financing Fund, CCCFF. And legislation was passed that in 2024, this grant program has to, the applicant has to be a partner with a creative district. So the project has to happen in a community that has a certified creative district. So we've seen a lot of activity because of that. So I just wanted to share a little bit about this program. One of the things that's required is we have to sign off on the projects. The Arts Council does, which means we've been able to see the proposals ahead of time, which is kind of exciting. We didn't have to wait until January to see the LOIs. So far, we have 12 districts that are going to be applying in this grant category. And so I've included a couple of examples up there so you can see some of the projects that they're thinking about doing or planning on doing. The grant request amount is all done by population size. So that's something that DED has put together, this request amount schedule, and it's all based on the population of the community that's applying. So you'll see things like the community center. One of the things that I'm really excited about is the one in Ogallala that is a public artist co-op. They have a building that has been empty in their community and they're wanting to turn it into an artist co-op. And I think that's just really exciting to see the city get behind that because the applicant or the project has to be owned by the city for 5 years. That's part of the requirements of the grant program. So it has to have this partnership and relationship with the city. So that's really exciting to see the municipality really get behind the projects. They have until until the applications are due in February to be able to submit and have their proposals approved by us. So we may still see a few more trickle in. I know Valentine is really interested in submitting an application, and there are some others. So we may see a few more. We may get a few more than 12, but right now we're looking at a request total of around $7 million. DED usually has around 5 or 6 million to award. So a lot of the projects will be funded, but probably not everyone. So being a certified district doesn't guarantee them funding. It just helps narrow the applicant pool of of the applications. Last year, we reviewed 42 to 45 applications in this grant category. I sat on the grant panel to kind of understand the process. So it's going to be a much smaller applicant pool, which means a lot of these projects will get funded, but it doesn't guarantee them funding. Any questions either about creative districts or about this grant program that we get to partner with DED about?
I have a comment.
Yeah.
Number one, Rachel is a goddess with a capital G.
Oh,
She
and I'm going to
just
pay
is.
Clark later. The check's in the mail.
No, that's okay. I just I spent about 10 months of last year working with our city administrator toward getting us certified, and now that that has happened, I did not expect this, but she's asked me to be the first administrator of the creative district, and so I've humbly accepted that. And for anybody else in this situation, I'll just share the first thing I did was take my fountain pen and write my district legislator and thank them for the support that they gave Nebraska Arts Council, thank them for their vision, for and hope that they would continue to support this, and then I would try to see what I would do. I know that they're very busy, but I'll let you know when we have big events that you might be interested in. And I just think those kinds of things are important just beyond the borders of our creative districts. Is just I don't expect a response back. That's not why I did it. I just wanted to say thank you and let people see the Nebraska Arts Council name again and let them know that a place in their district had been certified.
Nice.
Thank you, Clark. It's been really exciting to also work with entities that aren't used to how the arts work. Just today I had a conversation with somebody who had no idea what an artist contract was for a performing artist. And so we were able to talk through that and provide some examples. And so it's been really fun to work with entities that this is completely new to them. It's been great.
I will just add that the program has gained a great deal of exposure, and it's becoming more and more part of the conversations at the legislative level and within the communities. I met with Matt Wynn, who is the executive director of Flatwater Free Press last week, and he is interested in developing a relationship with us that would basically be a means of providing premiums for people who subscribe to his paper, but it would involve contracting artists from the different communities to put together celebrations of their creative district that they then turned around and made possible to be part of premiums for those subscriptions. And we as a staff are looking at the potential of that, the ramifications of that, the good and the bad of it. But the point is that creative districts are becoming more and more an entity and an example of how the arts can work within these communities. And I think the fact that people are coming to us is a great sign of its success. Amy.
I just have a question. Can we go back one slide? And while we're doing that, congratulations on the success of this program. After they're certified, all of those that are listed there, they're able to apply for a larger grant, correct?
They are. We have what we call a development grant, which is up to $250,000.
And how much money did we get for all of this?
We get $1 million a year.
For this year or the next year or 1 year?
each year we get $1 million appropriated for this. So yes, you've done the math and realized, yeah, that's a lot of communities for the amount of money that we have. And a large, I'm sorry, was that the extent of your comment, or did you have a question?
It was a question about how far that's going to extend, and if there are, you don't want to argue with success, but it's going to create maybe a financial issue
It
quickly.
is, and a large part of what we'll be working on this year is developing an argument for more funding for this program. The other reality is that there may not be more funding, and so then as an agency, do we continue to extend $250,000 grants? Do we make them smaller so that the money goes farther? Who knew this project would be as popular as it is? But I think its success speaks for itself. And so now, how do we sustain it? How do we make it most useful for the communities that are involved? And so, yeah, those are all questions that we'll have to be wrestling with going forward. Thank you, though, for pointing that out.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else on creative districts?
That's all I have.
Okay, thank you very much. The numbers keep growing and growing and growing. Okay, are we ready for 1% then with Megan?
Josh was going to give us a quick update about the Arts Now grant.
Okay.
This was an added that we got this information late.
Okay.
Just a little update here on Arts Now grant, something that Suzanne Wise helped cook up before she retired. $180,000 to schools across the state for art supplies, those big durable goods, often that are not provided for by other grants. 23 school districts received awards out of 44 that applied. 79 schools are involved throughout the entire state. I had the privilege of reviewing some of these grants, and communities across the state are going to get kilns and pottery wheels, great big theater curtains that otherwise would be so expensive. I didn't know how curtains can be such a make or break piece of equipment, but they are. I learned a lot in this review process, and risers, all kinds of wonderful curricula are going to be distributed throughout the state due to this program. So thank you all for putting it into motion. And I cannot wait to share more once we get those final reports and we can actually see the programs and projects that are that come out of this.
I'll just add, because I believe in giving credit where credit is due, that the idea for this actually came from Rachel. We had a surplus of funds left over from the federal government that we wanted to see what good we could do with them. And Rachel said, why don't we help the teachers out? The art education teachers across the state have been as stressed as anybody else. And so we thought, how can we help them with the work that they do in their classrooms? These are all project-based to help them develop something within their school, and it will get them a little farther down the road. And so we're as happy about the money that we're able to distribute across the state as the fact that it allowed us to develop a relationship with the Department of Education at a time where they're looking for greater outreach. And I think the result of the program has been on all levels very successful. And we can't wait to see what the teachers do with the money. But so far, so good.
That came from being a music teacher.
You walk the walk. Okay, are we ready to go on to 1% for art now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Megan.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. This is mostly a public art recap of the last year and where we're going. Just so you can see right up there at the top right, I've mentioned that one, I believe, a few times. That's the one where you can scan the QR code and see it in your space. So that was a really exciting project that was officially installed late this summer, and it looks really fantastic on the site where it is. Very bright and exciting, and UNMC did a really fantastic article, as did Sam, our own communications manager. So there's been a lot of really good press about it, or articles. And if you are curious about seeing that, it is in front of the UNMC Williams Science Hall. And you won't miss it if you're looking at the entrance, the entrances of the buildings along the main road that goes through UNMC. Along with that, I have 4 images here on this page. They all refer to a project that will be installed next year. All that means is that we've had a lot of committee meetings this last year, and we've been busy working up some really cool projects. As you can see, there are 2 projects at UNO. There's a project at UNL, and then there's also a project at UNK. So the majority of my work this last year has been on the university campuses. And I also expect in the coming year that we will have plenty more committee meetings, specifically for UNMC, and possibly also some of the colleges. We will have another project installed at Chadron State College, and I'm excited about that, but we don't have confirmation about the artist, so I will let you know in March what the artist has cooked up for that project. I also wanted to mention here that we have been doing a public art services program. So where these projects here on an image form on the slide are from the 1% for Art program, that's where every time there is state appropriated funds for the building of a new building, new construction, or the renovation of a building, we get a % of that to commission an artist or artwork for that building. Our public art services is similar to that, but they are not state appropriated funds. So usually they are other organizations who would like public art, and they are also occasionally university projects that would like more public art above and beyond what they're appropriated. So this is a really exciting momentum that we're working with, and there were a few of those installed this year. One of those projects was with the Douglas County Justice Center. We had a committee meet with the Luritzen Gardens for large-scale public work, and then we also had one installed just recently at the MCC Automotive Center at the South Campus. The artist was just in town, and he did a artist talk with the MCC students, and it was really cool. He worked with the automotive students to have his artwork painted on site by the students, so they got real life experience in painting artwork with automotive paint, which is a really, as you can imagine, rare opportunity that they wouldn't have otherwise got. So there are a lot of really exciting projects as far as that goes, and more to come. I think I have perhaps one more slide here.
Yes.
Okay. And so as I'm talking about these public art services, just like 1% for art funds, we get a maintenance fund, and that admin fee goes into a maintenance fund, which we can repair artwork within the 1% for art fee. Similarly, with public art services, since it's not 1%, we keep those admin fees, which is basically what we charge for my work on those projects. And we save them within NAC DC. And so depending on how many public art service projects we get, we have a little cachet of funds in our NAC DC maintenance budget. And with that, this year, we were able to grant some additional funds to the Scaring Civic Plaza. Most of the funds were raised locally by local funders and organizations. They needed a little extra funding to pour the foundations for their sculptures. They wanted to make a sculpture garden. For one thing, to provide community members with an additional space where they can do what communities do best, and that's gathering and having a good time outside. They also wanted a place where tourists could go along the Oregon Trail and as they're heading out to parks and just, driving through the state, something great to do. And then the last thing that they were thinking about when they were putting this together was being a part of the conversation that's happening across the state with public art gardens. As you know, the Jean Leahy Mall, which was shown at the top of this meeting, has really great public art. There are a series of public art sculptures in that garden. We have the sculptures along I-80, which are, on the way from Jean Leahy Mall out to Gering. And then another new sculpture garden is in Kearney at the Yanni Park. So they wanted to be a part of that conversation. And in their words, they said bookend the sculpture gardens that are happening across the state. And I imagine we'll see quite a few more of these coming out of the creative districts or the idea of public art. Since our public art services projects are not regular, it's not clear how many other projects will seep into this fund and be available to grants. But for example, another thing that we did with that fund was the Nebraska Wind sculpture, which is a sculpture along I-80, and we partnered with the DOT to re-site that sculpture at the same site, but in a more safe position, and to do some repairs on that. So those funds are being put to good use, and I'm looking forward to seeing how else we can use them. And I'm also looking forward to going to see the sculpture garden in the future. Let me know if you get out there before me. I'd love to hear how it is. And that's all I have.
I might add that many of you will recognize the two ladies in the picture there. Gretchen Peters was a former council member and longtime community advocate and our artist out there in Gering, and Rita Stinner, of course, Senator Stinner's wife, and a Governor's Arts Award winner, and a great friend to the council. They, as well as one other person, Shannon, I can't remember their name, were the ones who headed up this project. And the only other thing that I'll mention is that, as Megan mentioned, the I-80 project is a program that started back in the 70s, and the 50th anniversary of it is coming up in a couple of years. And both Gretchen and Rita are interested in being part of a celebration of that would call attention to that program and some renewed interest, and provide us an opportunity to have another cross-sector collaboration with the Department of Transportation. So that's another program that we may be looking, or project that we may be looking to develop in the coming years.
Okay. Wow, lots of good things going on. Okay, is there any other business? Anything we haven't covered we need to?
Sherry, can I add one more thing?
Sure.
I know that I gave up the mic, but I would also like to mention that right now we have a brand new exhibition in our Fred Simon Gallery. It is by Santiago Call. He is a professor at UNL, and he's also a really talented sculptor, and the exhibition is really a delight to look at. So if you are interested in stopping by the Fred Simon Gallery, you can email me or Sam anytime, and we can be there to look at it with you. I would love any chance to look at it with any of you. So thank you.
Okay. Well, if there's no other business, then we need a vote for adjournment. We need a motion.
So moved.
Thanks,
Second.
Zach.
Mark.
Okay.
Okay. So Sherry,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Brenda. Oh yeah, she's in transit. Michelle, Crystal,
Yeah.
Jana,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
Ellen,
Yes.
Mark, there he is,
Yes.
and Sarah.
Yes.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, everybody, thank you so much for your time. This was a great meeting. Lots of good information. And I hope you all have, in the next month, have happy holidays, however you're celebrating with your families, and careful travels if you're traveling. And looking forward to seeing you in the new year. Can you believe it? 2024. Okay, I guess we're adjourned then. Mike, did you have anything else?
No, well, I tell you, if anybody wanted to hang back and see those videos, I'd be glad to show those. Otherwise, I will echo everything that Sherry said, and thank you all, and look forward to seeing you next year.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.